Good morning and welcome to the fifth, almost annual Sue Ellen Freed Courage to Change Symposium, sponsored by Reaching Out From Within. As most of you know, we begin each Blue Book group meeting with a moment of silence for victims and those affected by violence and harm. Even though this year Reaching Out From Within brings us together for the fifth time, this year is different. As most of you know, last fall on October 3rd, we lost our founder and matriarch, Sue Ellen Freed. And we would like to honor her with a candle here, with her presence, to let her be known that she is with us today in spirit. She would be thrilled to see so many of you here, and we know that she was instrumental in bringing so many of you together to this event. We'll talk a little bit more about Sue Ellen in a moment, but if you will pause with me for a moment to remember those who have been touched by violence and harm, and in honor of Sue Ellen. Thank you. In honor of Sue Ellen and the many lives that she touched, we've actually renamed this event the Sue Ellen Freed Courage to Change Symposium. So that's how it will be known in years to come. We're so excited to have many of Sue Ellen's family and friends here in the room today. And I want to invite Daniel Ramos up to the microphone to be able to talk and share just a few memories about Sue Ellen. Danny?
Good morning, everybody. As always, it's always a pleasure to be here and to serve Reaching Out From Within and to commemorate Sue Ellen, such a beautiful person, such an amazing power in this world. And when I think of Sue Ellen Freed, I think about how fearless she was. She was fearless, especially when she felt that she was called to do something. And in the second half of her life, she was called by drug dealers, gangsters, rapists, and murderers, crying out from the depths of their hearts for someone to see something more in them. And she came. She came in pantsuits and red lipstick. And she reminded us that the only way to move past who we had been was to reveal it. And if we were willing to do that, then in each other we'd find that spark of light, that spirit where our humanity fights to break free and reflected back at us the beautiful faces of each other. And from the depths of shame, pain, and regret, we would find healing and peace. When asked if she was ever tempted to judge us, she said that it never occurred to her to look at us as our crimes. She believed that inside all of us are angels and beasts, and that the more we were willing to confront the beast, the more likely we would be to hold on to the angel. She was an advocate for the hardest of us to represent, and she decided to make it her responsibility to push the very system that was created to break and bury and kill us to open its doors and let beautiful, peaceful people like her inside, and to let those murderers and gangsters out. I can't imagine those conversations were easy in the beginning. I can't imagine that the system that was founded on control and distrust, on assumptions and labels, was eager to allow these kind-hearted people inside of their institutions to sit in circle with men that they were trained to believe were always looking for ways to manipulate and take advantage. But her presence. Sue Ellen's physical being was so small, so gentle, so graceful, that it immediately made you feel as if she was someone that you had to protect. But then she would look at you with those piercing eyes, and you would listen to her describe with strength and conviction the eternal truth that all of God's children, every one of them, is redeemable. To be in the presence of someone who had seen what she had seen, been to the places she had been, studied and conversed with brilliant people from all walks of life, from all over the world, communicate this message of hope and forgiveness, of redemption and transformation, made it impossible to stand in her way. Sue Ellen was an addict. Her words, not mine. That's what drove her to drive countless miles every Christmas season to visit every prison in the state of Kansas. She was addicted to personal transformation. And the more she visited these prisons week after week, year after year, decade after decade, the stronger her convictions grew and the stronger her addiction became. Reaching Out from Within's roots grew deeper and deeper into the Kansas Department of Corrections, and it too began to change. She saw dozens of men and women become hundreds, and hundreds became thousands. And in those transformations, countless of brothers and sisters, mothers and fathers, children and grandchildren began to see what could happen if only we had the courage to go where we are called to go. And if those of us hurting would go to where we were being called to explore the very places, the very relationships, the very hearts that had betrayed us and led us to become outcasts, castaways, forgotten souls. If we could find the courage to do that, Sue Ellen will be waiting. And so would her army of volunteers and all of my brothers and sisters who have opened that blue book and struggled and prayed and cried on its pages. And before we knew it, Sue Ellen's eternal truth would become our own. And we would begin to hear our own voices start to advocate for ourselves, exactly the way you hear my voice today. You see, Sue Ellen gave voices to the voiceless and encouraged us to go deep inside of the ugliest parts of ourselves and not be ashamed, because she knew that right there, buried beneath the muck and the mire, the blood and the grime, the shame and regret, our angels were waiting for us. Sue Ellen believed that our chaotic, violent, destructive experiences had value, and that by being honest and reflecting on them, we could change the world. There's no replicating Sue Ellen Freed. There's no replacing her. There was only remembering the lessons she taught us, lessons of courage and presence, of open-mindedness and redemption, of truth-telling and transformation, of kindness and compassion. If we hang on to those things, then she will be with us forever, the way that she is with us today, the way that she is with me every time I fall short with one of my sons. Reminding me of the saving power of kindness and forgiveness and the ever-present opportunity for personal transformation. I want to leave you with Sue Ellen's words, meant for each and every one of you. I love seeing you. I love feeling you. I love being with you. We love you, Sue Ellen. Let's honor her today with honesty and kindness and an unwavering belief in each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny, for sharing those words. I wondered, during the last 6 months, I wondered what this moment would be like. Because this is the moment that Sue Ellen would come up and talk. Danny, thank you for sharing what she would say to us today, and for each of us being able to remember her at this time. My name is Gregory Winship. For those who don't know me, I'm the president of the board of directors for Reaching Out From Within. And as we move on into the rest of the day, I want to acknowledge some of the people who made this event possible this year. First of all, I'd like to recognize the Reaching Out From Within board members. If you are in the room, if you would please either stand or wave so that people can identify who you are. Reaching Out From Within board members. I might add that we are looking to add a few more board members this year, so if anyone is interested in joining our group, let us know. Also, we have dedicated volunteers and alumni for the Reaching Out From Within program. These are people who week after week after week go into the prisons and sit with our Blue Book groups. They volunteer to do the banquets each year and to be able to help with the boxes that we give out as Christmas gifts. They travel to and from North Carolina and Missouri and all over Kansas to be able to be at those places. We have volunteers and alumni in the room. Would you please stand and be recognized or wave? This event would not be possible without the help of our event coordinators. Carrie is in the back of the room in black and white. Carrie, will you wave? Stand up. And I want to mention Eliza Barr. Where are you? Eliza is the chairwoman of the Social Movement Committee, which is the committee on the board that puts this together each year. Eliza, you might as well stand back up because I'm going to introduce the staff next. So Eliza is also our executive director for Reaching Out From Within. Jim Eccles is the chief development officer of Reaching Out From Within. And Mary Ward is our volunteer program coordinator in North Carolina, who is here. We appreciate all that each of you are doing for this organization. I'd also like to recognize a few longtime supporters that are in the room. The Sue Ellen Freed family, of course, is here. Would you all please? The Kemper Family Foundation, I think Bibi is joining us a little bit later. I'm not sure. Is Bibi? Thank you. I didn't see you come in, Bibi. Thank you. The Zephyr products. Are Randy and Cheryl here yet? I think. Driving, they're on their way. Okay, good. We'll recognize them again when they get here. And the Bob Barker Foundation. Some of our more recent supporters include the ACLU of Kansas. They're in the room somewhere. Uncornered, up in the front. Kansas City Crime Commission, along the side over here. We thank all of you for the continued support that you're giving to Reaching Out From Within. I also want to thank each of you who are the attendees who are here in person watching online, including many people in Kansas, North Carolina, and Missouri, as well as other states. I believe we have Ohio represented, we have California, we have Alabama, we have Virginia, we have a number of other states that are watching and participating online. So we will get some information from them with Carrie as she's watching the chat as we go throughout the day. But thank you for all that each of you do to make this event possible and to keep Reaching Out From Within in mind. For those who might be new to Reaching Out From Within, we're a 501c3 corporation, nonprofit organization based in Kansas. 3 years ago, we celebrated our 40th anniversary. In Kansas, we have 19 self-help groups in every prison in the Kansas DOC and one at the Johnson County Adult Reporting Center. We even added a group this year. We reopened the East Lansing facility, and we started a group back up at that facility. You'll hear a little bit more about that later. We have 6 groups in North Carolina, thanks to the work of Mary and the Bob Barker Foundation and a lot of other volunteers down there. We just added a new group at the beginning of this month. Hyde Correctional began again on March 5th, I think. is when they started. And last week, I think Mary and I got inquiries from 4 more different institutions down in North Carolina that are interested in starting Reaching Out From Within programs. So hopefully by next year, we might be into double digits in North Carolina. Also, we have one facility in Missouri at the Transition Center of Kansas City. They are in the middle of the room somewhere. Thank you for the work that you're doing at the Transition Center. We also have staff and residents from the Transition Center of Kansas City, some of those who attend the Reaching Out From Within group here. So if you get a chance, table 18 is where they're located, if you want to say hi to them. We have a contingent from Nebraska here today who we just mentioned back here at this table. I think this is the 3rd year that you all have been here, and I just had a conversation about we need to get some groups in Nebraska started, so we're going to have that conversation. We've already got a date set to be able to talk about starting at Tecumseh, maybe even NSP, the Nebraska State facility. So we are looking to expand. We are looking to grow. We are looking to continue bringing Reaching Out From Within to a number of different people. During our meetings for Reaching Out From Within, each week, Reaching Out From Within members and volunteers facilitate a discussion around the Blue Book, our 400-page Blue Book curriculum. Several of the Blue Books and other memorabilia are on display in the back. If you have not seen one of those and would like to become familiar with that, we can show you that information. The mission of Reaching Out From Within clearly states that Reaching Out From Within is a member-led organization that inspires incarcerated individuals to heal and transform themselves to become productive members of their communities. Today we have over 200 people online. We have about 200 people in the room. It looks pretty full to me. And so thank you for being here and being a part of this. I want to go ahead and invite the first panel to come on up as we finish remarks. So the first panel that we will start with is our panel on restoring dignity. It is moderated by Danny Ramos, and it includes Evan Altman from the ACLU of Kansas, Gloria Geither, Deputy Secretary of Kansas Department of Corrections, Joy Springfield from the Kansas Legal Services, and again, Danny will be moderating that panel. So I will turn it over to Danny and our honored guests. Thank you.
It's okay, Gloria. Am I on? Okay. Hello again. Once again, my name is Danny Ramos. Greg introduced me as Daniel Ramos, but when I first met Sue Ellen, she started calling me Danny. And from then on, I've been Danny. So not only was Sue Ellen my great friend, but she also gave me my new name. So I thank her for that as well. That's all right. I'd like to just thank you guys for being here. As Greg said, this is a very important event to us, a very important event to Sue Ellen Freed. The courage to change is something that we believe in strongly and that we call everybody to have. And so this first panel is about restoring dignity. And I have Gloria Geither, the representative of the Department of Corrections. I have Joy Springfield, who does work with the Kansas Legal Services, and Evan Altman, who works for the ACLU. I'm just going to ask them to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about the work that they're doing. So we'll start with you, Evan.
Okay. Good morning. Again, my name's Evan. I am a voting rights organizer with the ACLU of Kansas, and one of the favorite projects that we are working on right now is informing Kansans with felonies of their right to vote. There's a lot of misinformation in this space. There are a lot of people, myself was one of those individuals that thought once you are convicted, you can never vote. I believe the numbers right now, there are 71,000 in the state, which is like 2 to 3% of the population that we need to reach out to, that we need to let them know that not only do we want their voice in our elections, but we need their voice in our elections. If we want the criminal justice system to be reformed, we need their leadership and their votes. So that's about it.
Thank you, Evan.
Hi, I'm Joy Springfield. I'm the statewide pro bono director for Kansas Legal Services. What that means is I recruit attorneys to do free legal work for our community around Kansas. One of our projects is driver's license clinics. That's where we try to help people restore their driving licenses. It's a big problem in Kansas. I think it's about 200,000 people that don't have a valid license. We also do expungement clinics. We're having one Friday in Wichita, by the way. In expungement clinics, we have volunteer attorneys that prepare the documents for the people that we have already vetted and know that they're eligible, and they'll prepare the documents for them and give them to file with the court. We can prepare documents for any court, any district court in Kansas. And if they need a hearing, they call me, and I'm usually there on Zoom.
Thank you, Joy.
You're welcome.
My name is Gloria Geither. I'm the Deputy Secretary of Facilities Management for the Kansas Department of Corrections. I think the easiest way to sum it up is that I oversee all the prisons in the state, so 90% of the problems are my fault. So, so bring me all your grievances, because that's usually where it starts. So anyway, but we have 8 prisons throughout the state. We have 1 juvenile facility in the department. It's in Topeka, and so that's pretty much sums it up.
All right, thank you. A lot of work summed up in a little, for sure.
For sure.
So I always do this almost every time I'm on a panel, or so I forget to tell people a little bit more about myself. So I'm an alum of Reaching Out From Within. I spent 22 years in the Department of Corrections in Kansas. I think the last 8 or 9 of it, I was a dedicated member of Reaching Out From Within. When I came home, I joined the board of Reaching Out From Within with the help of Leslie Leahy and Russ Thompson. We started a transitional housing 501. Some of the board members are here in the room with us today, and which led me to just a deep passion for nonprofit work and to understand who these people were who dedicate so much of their time and their life to helping people that they don't know, that they have no personal interest or investment in. And so that led me to work for CCR. Greg invited me to join him in his mission down at TCKC. We got Michelle and Nate and Beth down there at their table. It was great spending a year learning and working alongside them. And now I work with an organization called Uncornered, a nonprofit, originally out of Boston, but now in Kansas City, Missouri and Kansas City, Kansas. We work with active gang members. And we always say we look for the most active, most violent gang members in the city. The 1% is how we usually describe them, because we believe that that 1% is comprised of tremendous leaders, tremendous men who have an amazing amount of influence in their communities and who, given the right opportunity and the right support, can lead the change and the transformation that those communities need. We feel like they're brilliant, they're full of purpose, they're full of passion. They just haven't been given the time or the support to discover how to use those talents in a positive way. And so, like, me joining a gang when I was 14, going to prison for murder, spending all those years in there and coming home is what leads me to be so passionate about my work. And I think that that's important to talk about, why we do the things we do. I think that it's probably more important than what we do, why we do what we do. And so I just want to ask our panelists to talk a little bit about why they do the work that they do. Maybe that's a personal experience or something that happened to you or that you've learned along your journey. But I think that it's important for all of us to understand why we're all here today and why we pursue the work that we pursue with our passion and our person. So, Evan, I'm going to start with you again.
Yeah, so, this has been so long ago. I'm getting old. While in college, I developed an addiction to prescription pills. Leads me to dropping out of school, homelessness, and inevitably the criminal justice system. And that was kind of the time in my life where, like, the blinders were taken off. I was able to see the system for what the system actually is. And, going through that experience, I realized so many things. my case, I'm lucky. I'm not part of the statistics we hear and we talk about. I was able to get probation, to pay my fines, to get the treatment that I needed to be strong in recovery, and because thanks to Joy, my record expunged. Like it never ever happened. But what bugs me and what makes me passionate about doing this work is that's not the case for 99% of the other people. And I came to know that, there's a few factors that go into it. Color of my skin, my economic status, and I think the big one here, my community, is what helped get me through that experience, what helped use that experience as like a teaching lesson, not something that traps me into a cycle, if that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, for sure. Thank you for being vulnerable with us, Evan. I know it's not always easy to talk about the things that we've been through, and like you said, it's expunged like it never happened, so you could forget about it if you wanted to and just move on with your life, but I think it's important that you keep telling that story, and we appreciate like you telling it today, man. Big props to you. Joy?
Okay. I grew up in Atlanta, and I went to Howard University, undergrad, and then I went to law school in Baltimore. And so my path was a little different. So I worked at Shook, Hardy and Bacon law firm in Missouri for a lot of years as an attorney. And during COVID, I always did pro bono, which is free legal services. During law school, I know some of my professors drilled it into me. That's our responsibility as attorneys to give back. You always do pro bono. So I always did. And even at Shook, I did a lot of pro bono, family law, expungements, adoptions, which I love, all that stuff. And during COVID, my father passed away. He was a very big impact on me. Not from COVID, but he just passed away. And I was like, I really love representing tobacco and pharmaceutical companies, but maybe I need to change because I really like doing pro bono and I love helping people. So the opportunity came about 2-3 years ago, 22, for pro bono director, statewide pro bono director. And so I was like, I have no experience, I don't know. I was like, yeah, sure, I'm gonna go ahead and put my resume in for this. And I got the position, and it's a lot of work, more than I thought, because our department is a department of 1, now 2. And pro bono, we go all the way through the state and do a lot of different clinics and also recruit attorneys to help. And if there's any attorneys in the room that are licensed in Kansas, please see me, because we have a great need for your assistance. But I think that, and being in law school, my brother got shot. He's paralyzed now, but he got shot, and that impacted me because I'm in law school, like, what's going on? And just life has impacted me, and I've always wanted to give back, so I think.
Well, thank you, Joy. We appreciate your work. And if there's, yeah.
Thank you.
And any lawyers in the room, please take her up on
Yes.
that offer for help. We need you for sure. Gloria?
So my first job out of college was with the Kansas Department of Corrections. So I've been in the department for 35 years. And I started at the Topeka Correctional Facility. And, just like any 21-year-old getting out of college, you're just looking for a job, and I was always interested in corrections and not any influence, just interested in it. So I started at the Topeka Correctional Facility. I thought, I'll do it for 6 months, get the experience you need. That's what, at the time, that's what you needed to move on, and then I'll go somewhere else. Within those 6 months, I met this resident by the name of Helen. Some of you may have heard this story before, but So I met this resident named Helen. And Helen had done 25 years on a bad check. Wow. So you can imagine Helen was severely mentally ill, got into a lot of fights, all those years ago. You just kept getting time added to you. One day I was in my office and Helen was sitting across from me, and I knew she was getting ready to get out, and we had a conversation about it. I was a low man on the totem pole. And after Helen left my office, I noticed my scissors were gone. So I went to Helen's cell and I said, "Helen, did you take my scissors?" She said, "I did." And I said, "Why would you do that? You're getting so close to go home." And she goes, "I don't want to go home. I don't have anywhere to go." And I said, "Well, don't you have family to go to?" And she said, "No." And I said, "Well, where are you going to release to?" She goes, "I don't know." While she was talking to me, she kept pulling on her face. She's severely mentally ill. I knew she wasn't on her medication or anything. And I said, "Well, Helen, it's going to be okay. It'll be all right. You got to give me my scissors back." She said, "Well, you have to write me up." And I said, "Is that why you took my scissors?" And she goes, "Yeah, because you'll do the right thing." And that would mean she would have to stay longer. And I said, "Helen, it's time for you to go home. I'm not going to write you up. It's time for you to go home." So Helen left, and the next day I was leaving my office, and Helen was standing outside the fence. And I said, "What are you doing?" And she had taken the bus, got off the bus, because she had released homeless. She got off the bus, and she says, "I don't have anywhere to go." She said, "Everybody I know is in here." And I said, "Have you eaten?" And she said, "Yeah." She said, "I found some food." And I said, "Well, Helen, you have to go. You got to go. I'm going to get in trouble." And she said, "But I want to come back." And I said, "You can't come back. You have to go." And of course, I hadn't been there very long, so security and everybody's looking at me for undue. And so she leaves. The next day, I come out of my office and Helen's there. And I said, "Helen, what are you doing?" I said, "You're going to get in trouble." And she said, "Please, Gloria, tell him to let me come back in." And I said, I can't tell him to let you. You just can't come back." And Helen said, I don't know anybody out here. Nobody cares about me. Please let me come back." And I said, I can't. I can't let you come back." Happened 3 times, and then I didn't see Helen anymore. And then I found out that Helen died under a bridge alone. That's why I'm in corrections.
Thank you for that story, Gloria, and for being vulnerable with that. And I think that it's important that we just take a moment to remember Helen and all the people like Helen who have slipped through the cracks of our society and found themselves alone when they needed help the most. Thank you. I think listening to those stories reminds me of why dignity is so important and why maintaining and restoring people's dignity is so important. So I would just like to let each of the panelists talk about what they think of when the word dignity is mentioned and some of the things that they've seen done, that they have done, and that maybe should be done in order to continue to restore people's dignity. I know Evan, like the main thing he talked about that helped him be successful was support. And I think one way that we restore people's dignity is by reminding them that they're not alone and that they're just as valuable in this world as everybody else. So I think support is definitely one of the things that we could do and do more of. We could never have enough of it. But Evan, is there anything else that the ACLU or that you or that our communities can be doing or should be doing to help maintain or restore people's dignity?
Yeah, of course. Come to me and sign up to volunteer with us. You know, give folks their rights back. Why does someone who is impacted by the system, why can't they vote? Why do we take the right to vote away to begin with? I think those are conversations we should be having. You know, every day I get to talk to individuals and I get to talk to people with felonies, and the first thing they say is, I can't vote. I have a felony. I'm a felon. And just by the tone of their voice, you know, it has a certain tone to it that's like, I'm other than, I'm not important enough to vote. You guys don't want my voice, etc. So I think it's important by giving them responsibility and just by giving them their rights, just because they have made a mistake or, you know, they have an addiction that led them there, does not mean that, you know, we don't want their input. They should have a say in what their community looks like.
Can you talk a little bit about like some of the other states and what their voting laws look like? I know that they differ sometimes from state to state, correct?
Yeah, thank you for that. So in Kansas, it's really simple. So once you're convicted of a felony, you lose that right to vote. However, once you complete all of the terms and conditions, so you're released, you do your parole, you get off paper, you are eligible to re-register to vote at that point. However, you know, at that point, there's really no one telling them or encouraging them to do so. I know that when I was on probation, that my probation officer said I couldn't vote ever again. And I was a nerd and already into politics back then, so that crushed me, and then I just found out that's not true. So yeah, there's a lot of misinformation out there. I believe Missouri is the same guidelines there. And then other states, it just depends. I mean, you know, some states, you just automatically lose the right to vote for the rest of your life, depending on the crime, the severity of it. Other states, you need clemency from the governor, so it could be a lot worse. So.
Thank you. Joy?
Okay. The way we do it through Kansas Legal Services is we give people their dignity back by helping them get their expungement for their cases that they have. They're always very, very grateful, and the attorneys love meeting the clients face to face, because a lot of our attorneys that volunteer, they're just working for a big company, so they don't have any, you know, individual clients. And going to court with them or helping them get these expungements is just providing dignity. Then they could, you know, get the job they want, get a promotion that they've been trying to get, volunteer at their kids' school, go back to school, go to college. A lot of people are trying to go to nursing school or something like that, and they're blocked because of their record. Also, even if you want to be a hairdresser, a tattoo artist, you have a background check, and you can't do that if you have a record. Or if you want to work in a daycare, you can't do that if you have a record. So us helping them helps the community, helps their family, and that's one way we give them dignity. Also, with the driver's license, a lot of people, okay, I used to live in DC. You just step outside, get on the bus. You just step outside, go on the metro. So this is like very, the lack of transportation just irks me here. But anyway, so you need a car. You need to have a driver's license to get around, to go to work, to take your kids to school or whatever, any kind of errands you need. So we help them. If they can't get their license back, we have attorneys that assist them, volunteer attorneys, mind you, that help them if they have fees or fines on those driver's license, which are crazy, help them ask for a motion to waive them or reduce them. We have attorneys to help them fill out their forms for restricted license, to get them on the road quicker so they can, handle their business or get a job, get to that company that they want to work for. So I think those ways we restore dignity. I know all the attorneys that volunteer for me in any kind of capacity at the clinics or with family law cases, they treat everybody with dignity. And if they don't, they need to let me know. But that's what we try to do. And throughout Kansas Legal Services, the cases that we take, we always treat everybody with dignity, no matter where they're from or what happened in their past. They're worthy of us helping them.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Joy. Gloria, what are some of the, I talked about it earlier, as Reach Out from Within grew deeper and deeper into Kansas Department of Corrections, like the Kansas Department of Corrections itself was evolving and changing and moving towards things that were helpful when it came to dignity and people's dignity. Like, what are some of the things that you guys are doing now, some of the changes that may have occurred in recent years?
So I know that what's new for Kansas here recently is we changed the term from inmate, offender, convict, to resident. And that was a really big shift for
sure.
That was a really big shift. Really big shift for staff. When you go to other states, other states hear you say that, and, they have trouble adjusting to hearing that term. And, the biggest thing is people know who they are. I mean, you don't have to put that in their face all day long, and people are getting out. So 97% of the population is leaving. So, you don't have to have a term define them forever. So, anyway, but changing that term to resident, so we did that. Things that in corrections you look at and you take for granted, and you think that's a norm, and it's not. When I was warden at the Topeka Correctional Facility and at Lansing, you walk around and you see, guys have mattresses and they're stacking them up because the mattresses are paper thin. It's requiring everybody in every resident to have a 6-inch mattress, making sure the department gives everybody a nice 6-inch mattress. And it wasn't just me picking the mattress; it was have the residents. Let us get mattresses here and have the residents pick out what mattress do they think is the best mattress for them to have. Cost should not be an issue. We get paid to help the residents here. They should sleep on something nice because, who wants to, we all know how it feels to sleep on a bad mattress. So they're sleeping on bad mattresses. How's that going to be helpful to them and to us when they wake up in the morning and, they're already stacking them up. So it's because there's nothing there. And so pick out a nice quality mattress so they can sleep on. So we required every facility to have a 6-inch mattress for the resident. We made a geriatric facility in Winfield. So those residents that are aging, for the aging population that, they shouldn't be in a Lansing or a Hutchinson or an El Dorado because they're, their mobility and they're aging and they're just not doing well and aren't going to do well in those facilities and have a lot of medical and health problems and stuff. We made a medical facility, a geriatric facility in Winfield that they could go to that could, it's a nicer condition, living condition that would help them with, if they have wheelchair bound and things like that. So we have that facility now. There's a companion program. If a resident is is being observed because they're in a mental health crisis, we have a resident that sits across from them while they're, in crisis. And they keep observation on them for 24/7. And sometimes that companion that's watching them, they've been on that journey themselves too, and they can help them, not provide therapy, but just being a support system for them. Keep their mind occupied, play cards with them, play checkers with them, talk to them, help journal with them, anything like that to keep their mind and stuff occupied. I could go on, but like painting. So like painting a facility, we don't do well like painting inside of a facility. Right. We had, at the Topeka Correctional Facility, you walk into the maximum security facility and and prior wardens let the women pick out the paint colors. I don't know if people are colorblind, I'm not real sure, but I don't know why you would paint a cell house black and the doors red. I mean, does anybody want, they're living in there every day. I mean, that's not very conducive to wanting you to thrive in that kind of environment. And, I understand people like those colors, but not everybody likes those colors. And so, but painting it like a softer color, to, make you want to wake up in the morning. But it's not just about doing that for residents. It's also about taking care of staff too, because staff live there too. Staff have to be there too. And so, if staff are sitting on broken chairs and, fixing the chairs that they sit on and making the environment conducive for them because they're working there every day. And so it's just treating both with dignity and respect. And it breeds through the department if you do that. So
For sure, thank you for that. No, I think it's very, very important, like the beds that we sleep on, the walls that we look at, like the environment that we live in. I would always say, like I did a lot of time in prison, and like keeping things from guys for not doing the right thing, like hardly ever worked. But I would see, like, if a guy did get to level 3 and he did get his TV and he did get his radio and he did get to go to the store and he did get to get visits from his people past his immediate family, it's like experiencing a little taste of something better makes you want better. But if you've never had the opportunity to experience that, like it's like talking to somebody about a dream. It's hard for them to wrap their minds around, so they just treat it as if it never happened because it hadn't happened. So I think that's a powerful thing to give people that type of comfort and those types of choices in their environment.
Lansing has a concert. They have a concert every Thursday night out on their yard with 200 guys out there.
Awesome.
And they bring in a band. And that population is just so appreciative of it. Every week out there watching those guys, watching the band and those residents out there all dancing and having a great time. And, but everybody's happier, You're still incarcerated. It doesn't change your walls, but it makes your environment a little bit more normalized.
And I think that was one of Sue Ellen's big charges, is like one of the things that she admired a lot about Germany's system was that they normalize the life that they live there, wearing their own clothes, cooking their own meals, helping to build their own furniture, like being responsible for things is a huge step in people being prepared to come home. So I think the more that we can do that, the closer that we can get to that, the better it's going to serve all the residents, the better it's going to serve the staff, the better it's going to serve our communities when they come home. So I think it's great that we're pushing towards some of those things. And when I think about things that we could do more of, like talking to all my brothers and sisters that are alums, that are formerly incarcerated people, like telling your story. I know sometimes it's hard to tell your story, and sometimes it's hard to get opportunities to tell your story. But I think telling your story is very important. It puts like a person to those types of charges and those types of experiences, which allows people to look inside and like really your vulnerability changes things. So I would just say, like, to restore dignity, as crazy as it sometimes feels and sounds, telling your story is an important part of that. So I know we have a few minutes left, but do we have any questions? I'd like to open up the audience to any questions. Thank you guys for sharing your work and for sharing yourselves with us. Any questions? I think we got one over here.
Yeah, I can give you my card.
Got one, Joy. We got a question back here. I think she's got a mic coming your way.
My name is Sidney Davis, and I'm here with a delegation from Virginia, Maryland, and people in D.C. And Lonnell Sly, who was one of the coordinators inside of Lansing Prison, introduced me to the lady that we're here to celebrate. She wrote me a letter on his behalf. And we had the coalition to move him from this state back to Maryland, where he evolved from. He left Maryland and stayed in Lansing for 14 years. Former Congressman Jim Slattery was a representative in this state. And he and my friend Dan Wright, Dan used to come to see me when I was in Lawton. I did 21 years. And he left and went to China, and he came back, and we hooked up again. But he'll tell you the depth of that story at some point. But I'm going to say my question goes to the experiences that we have as offenders. Mr. Charles Hopkins here, he works for a podcast, and he tells this. He invites guys in to tell stories about their experiences in prison and to deal with the labor entrance of what they were doing while they were in. The primary concentration here is family reunification. Legislation of family reunification, because many families are robbed and stripped of knowledge to care for self and family. And then we have the tension growing of trauma, which is a disease. It's a bacteria that has not been addressed. And so we continue to face these kind of bacteria because we have not spoken to them. But Sue Ellen was a powerful instrument of God. And she accepted those challenges and went inside the bowels of these places to find out the very core of how they were being mistreated and offended, to now come back and expect them to do different. But some paid the price and some learned the value of what she, in fact, was exposing them to within the depth of their soul. This man right here, this brother right here, Lionel, I did not know, but my second wife, who passed away from cancer, and Lionel went to school together. She wanted me, one of her last dying wishes was that I would go get him in the prison and help him to come home. I had to honor that. That was in my heart. There was nothing else that I could do until we, Jim Slattery and Dan Wright and Charles Hopkins. He did 48 years. So Sue Ellen's passion and empathy for helping the needs of those who had been scorched and put in prison, scorched their minds, took away from them. This is an untapped resource that is inside of the bowels of these places that can help to transform and renew the thinking and prevent young people from crossing that bridge. We have the power to do it. I've learned, by the grace of God, not to negotiate what He has given me to make it nothing. So I can't negotiate what I've been given. The love that I have from these brothers is significant to my journey wherever I am. I stand up for that. I believe that. And so I can't negotiate that. So the dignity that this brother talks about, who gave the powerful speech about Sue Ellen, the dignity is invested in our thinking. And we in corrections have to learn, because now we are a product of corrections in a different element. We know what to do. We've learned the experience. We can give what we have learned to better the conditions. We are here to represent the thinking of Sue Ellen because it was empowered in him. He took the position. She wrote me about him, her and her husband, wrote the letter. I had energy from what she said to me about him. I took that and ran with it. Today is evidence of her impact, her life, her living experience of transforming conditions inside of the individual who lived in the depths of a dungeon, moved from one state to another without justification, without due process, just moved him, crushed his family, couldn't see his family. Those were painful, hurting times, and now we see the evidence of him having to go through it. This is a testament of who she was in him, of who God was in us. So we connected, we collaborated. So in corrections, we have an opportunity to use the untapped resources to make the difference.
For sure. Any other questions? Danny?
Oh, gosh. So corrections is ever evolving. It would be nice if everything was just perfect. We're always going to want to do better. We have a new work release substance abuse program in Lansing at the old East Unit. Well, we're calling it East Unit, but it's up on the hill. That's just starting out and stuff. Our private industries out in the community, and inside, we're building more private industries inside the facilities to give more residents opportunities inside. For me, having release plans, people not leaving homeless, people leaving with their medications and having solid places to live, that's just going to be an ever-growing thing that I really want to have that really squared away before I ever leave. And so that's just a lot of work that's going to be in progress for a while. So to me, that's where we need to go next.
Sure. Doug?
It's my fault. Bring it.
So this is straight on you.
It's all right.
I saw my first pro board in 1993 after serving 7.5 years. I had a 15 to life sentence. And in that same year, you're probably aware, they converted the sentencing structure to determinate sentence. And if I had been sentenced under the determinate sentencing, I would have served 8 years and a month. And so when I saw my first pro board, instead of the 97 months now required, I only had 90 done. So obviously they didn't let me go. The problem being is they didn't let me go for 27 more.
Wow.
And during that time I had 0 DR convictions, which sounds like a lie, but I have documentation. And so then while I was incarcerated, I cut in for commutation with the help of my unit team and the recommendation of my unit team, asking to have my sentence altered to 30 years. Since the crime carries 8 years, will you please give me 30 years? So that way, I had 32 years in. If I had been commuted to 30 years, I would have been done, and I could have gone on with my life, and I would have still done 4 times what the grid called for. Wow. Well, it took 4 years for me to get no back in the mail. No. It was like 2 sentences. And so now I've gotten out. I've been out 4 years, and about 1.5 years ago, my parole officer put me in to get off parole. Well, 6 months passed, and we didn't even hear an acknowledgement of receiving the letter. And so last year at this conference, the secretary, Zamuda, yeah, he was here. So I gave him a letter, and I didn't bother him. I just handed him the letter. And about 3 weeks later, I got a letter, okay, we're like looking into this. Well, now a year has passed. I wrote the people that he said I could follow up with, and they go, oh, we get feedback every 3 or 4 months. We'll let you know if something happens. So I was wondering, is there anything that the Department of Corrections could do to at least speed up the denial process?
So, well, those are great questions. Mark, you're over there hiding. Is there anything that you could help a sister out here with answering? Do you know anything about any of this?
What he is referring to is the early discharge process.
Why don't you tell him?
They can't hear you online.
Tell him who you are, Mark.
My name is Mark Keating, and I'm a member of the Kansas Prisoner Review Board. And what he's referring to is the early discharge process. And that's a process where somebody who is on supervision can petition the board to be given an early discharge from their sentence. And that's what this early discharge is. It's not to be relieved from being on supervision. It is relieving their sentence. And if somebody's on, say, a life sentence, what they're asking is for us to relieve them from that life sentence imposed by the court. So it's more than just relieving them from being on supervision. We're reviewing this case to determine whether we should relieve them from that life sentence in general. So it is a very daunting task for us to do and to consider, and we don't take that very lightly. We have a lot of information that we do need to process and consider. And somebody may be doing very well in supervision, and we want to commend that person and give them a lot of credit for that and encourage them to continue to do well and maintain that low level of risk in the community. And we want to encourage that and give them a lot of credit and support for that, because that's really a fantastic job when somebody can come out of facility and do well in the community, because that's super hard, and we really want to acknowledge the work that they do when they do well in the community. But to take that a next step and to relieve a sentence imposed by the court, that's a huge, huge responsibility for us to do, and so we don't take that very lightly. So we certainly don't want to deny it really quickly like that. We want to take our time and really consider all the factors involved, and it takes a process for us to do, and we really want to be thorough when we do review those requests. So it does take some time, and like I said, we want to be very thorough when we review all those requests. It has nothing to do with somebody, their performance on supervision, because they could be doing very, very well on supervision, but to relieve that sentence, especially a life sentence,
From court.
That's a huge, huge responsibility. We don't take that lightly.
So you haven't got a response yet?
No, like I did, the secretary when he wrote me, he told me to contact a woman at the Kansas office to follow up on it, and so I did, and she's the one that wrote back, well, we hear back every 3 or 4 months. If we hear anything about your case, we'll let you know. Like I said, since I was pro eligible almost 30 years ago, and it's kind of like I'm really kind of ready to move on with my life, and I'm kind of being held back here. When I put in my request to be relieved from parole, I also gave them the option, if they didn't want to do that, could they please grant me permission to get a passport just so I could travel the last few years of my life a little bit, because I've learned that people on parole can get a passport, but they have to get permission from their parole officer, and I've been told it would have to be from the Kansas Parole Board would have to give me that, or the Prisoner Review Board would have to grant me that permission, even if I wanted to like get a passport, so I could go to Canada or Mexico to visit family. And so I gave them either relieve me from parole or give me permission to get a passport. And I've heard neither, because it seems to me there's no fear in giving me a passport. If I don't come back, you don't have any problem.
Well, I think we're out of time. Oh, we got one more question?
One more question, and this will be our last question for this panel. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Thomas. I'm with Georgia Jumpstart to Recovery. This is for.
Put the mic closer to you.
My name is Thomas Graham. I'm with Georgia Jumpstart to Recovery. This is for corrections. Your story was very heartfelt about the woman under the bridge. She had no place to go. I wonder, does the corrections deal with sober living houses, Oxford houses, places that actually mediate for individuals that have no place to stay, that gives positive foundation and structure? I don't know if they do or not, but
Yes, we do now. I mean, back then, that was 35 years ago. So, yeah, we do now.
okay.
Yeah, thank you for suggesting that, though.
All right.
But thank you guys all for your questions. And I think that was a good question and a topic to bring up, Doug. I mean, we're on the subject of dignity, and I think that it's important for all of us to dig deep and really try to understand how we give people back their dignity when they've been doing everything that they've been asked to do for year upon year. And so I think that it's important for us to have these conversations, and maybe there'll be another forum, another opportunity where we can deepen these discussions and try to understand exactly what it is that the review board is looking for when it comes to letting people off of supervision. So thank you guys for your time. Thank you guys for being here.
Y'all should put him on the top of your list.
Danny and the panel members, thank you for exploring these important topics, bringing dignity back into prisons. We've got a lot to learn from European-style prison management models that have a step up on us in being able to treat people with dignity while they're inside. So thank you for exploring some of those options that are going on here. We'll take a short break. Before we do that, I want to encourage those of you that know how to do this to use our hashtag today, hashtag Courage to Change, and hashtag ROFW on social media to cover this event, as well as on Twitter. It is @ReachingOutFrom. So tweet about what's going on here. We encourage you to do that, and we'll see you in about 15 minutes for the next panel. Thank you.